Life is a journey filled with ups and downs, and sometimes the downs seem to outweigh the ups. It's a reality we all face, and today I'll take you through my own story. We'll delve into a time when life threw me a curveball, a challenge that seemed insurmountable, a hurdle that pushed me to my limits. But as we journey together, you'll see how this challenge shaped me, transformed me, and ultimately strengthened me. Stay with me as I share my personal journey of overcoming one of the most significant challenges in my life. We all face challenges, and mine started a few years ago when the unexpected happened. I was living what many would call a normal life, a steady job, a loving family, and a comfortable routine. But then, out of the blue, I was hit with a curveball that disrupted everything, a health crisis, the kind that makes you sit down and question the very essence of your existence. This was not just a physical challenge, but a mental and emotional one as well. It shook me to my core, turning my world upside down. The days turned into a blur of hospital visits, medical tests, and countless hours spent contemplating what lay ahead. The job that used to bring me satisfaction became a source of stress as I struggled to balance my work and health. My relationships, too, were put to the test as I grappled with the changes that were taking place. Every aspect of my life was affected, from the way I viewed my body, which was now a battlefield, to how I engaged with the world around me. The joy I once found in simple things seemed to have evaporated, replaced with a sense of dread and uncertainty. I was facing a challenge that seemed insurmountable, and it felt as if I was standing at the foot of a towering mountain, unequipped and unprepared. But the hardest part, the crushing isolation. It's one thing to face a challenge, but it's another to feel like you're facing it alone. The people around me were supportive, but they couldn't truly understand what I was going through. It was my battle to fight, my mountain to climb. The situation seemed impossible to overcome. The path ahead was shrouded in darkness, and I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But as I would learn, nothing is truly impossible, and sometimes it's during our darkest moments that we find our greatest strength. With this challenge came a lot of struggle and pain. As the challenge took center stage in my life, I found myself in the grips of a struggle that seemed insurmountable. Each day felt like a battle, an uphill climb against an invisible force that threatened to pull me back down with every step I took. My life, which had once been filled with laughter and light, was now dominated by this obstacle, this mountain I was determined to climb. I was confronted with feelings I had never experienced before. Frustration, sadness, anger, and despair became my constant companions. There were moments when I felt like a ship lost at sea, tossed about by the relentless waves of this struggle. I had days when I would wake up with a heavy heart, my mind filled with 1,000 questions. Why me? Why now? What did I do to deserve this? But it was during these darkest hours that I learned the most about myself. The struggle was not just physical, but emotional and mental as well. The challenge was not just about overcoming an obstacle, but also about dealing with the emotions that came with it. Fear, worry, and doubt were my constant companions, whispering words of discouragement in my ear, trying to convince me that I was not strong enough, not capable enough to overcome this. But in the depth of my heart, I knew they were wrong. Emotionally, I felt like I was on a roller coaster. There were days when I was on top of the world, feeling invincible, and then there were days when I was at rock bottom, feeling as if the weight of the world was on my shoulders. But through it all, I learned to ride the waves of my emotions, to allow myself to feel, to experience every high and every low. The struggle was difficult, it was hard, it was painful, but it was also necessary. It was during these trying times that I learned the true meaning of resilience. I found strength I never knew I had, courage that surprised even me. I discovered that I could push beyond my limits, that I could rise above my circumstances, that I could overcome. And so I pressed on. Each day, I took a step forward, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant. I kept going, even when the road was hard, even when the journey seemed impossible, because deep down, I knew that this struggle, this challenge, was not going to define me. It was not going to break me. Instead, it was going to make me stronger, braver and more resilient than ever before. Despite the struggle, I knew I had to keep going. Giving up was not an option. Then came the turning point, the moment when things started to change. It wasn't a single event, but rather a gradual shift, like the quiet transition from night to day. It began with the smallest spark of hope. That spark came in the form of a book, a seemingly insignificant paperback that found its way into my hands. The author spoke of resilience, of overcoming obstacles, of using adversity as a stepping stone to greatness. These words resonated with me. They made me question my perspective on my own situation. I began to see my challenge not as a roadblock, but as an opportunity for growth. I understood that the struggle wasn't designed to break me, but to build me. This realization was the catalyst for the change that was to come. It was like a light had been switched on in a room long left in darkness. I also found inspiration in the people around me. There were those who had faced similar challenges, and yet they had not only survived, but thrived. I saw in them a strength that I had previously thought was beyond my reach. I began to understand that if they could do it, so could I. I started to make changes, small at first, but each step, no matter how tiny, felt like a victory. I began to believe in myself and my ability to overcome. I learned to celebrate my progress, no matter how small. Each step forward, no matter how tiny, was a testament to my strength and determination. The turning point wasn't a moment of sudden revelation, but a series of small, seemingly insignificant steps that gradually led me towards change. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I wanted to give up. But each time I faltered, I reminded myself of the spark that had ignited this journey, the words that had given me hope, and the strength I had seen in others. This was the turning point, the moment when I realized that change was not only possible, but it was within my control. I understood then that I was not a victim of my circumstances, but the master of my destiny. This was the moment I realized that change was possible, and I had the power to influence it. Overcoming the challenge was not easy. It required a lot of strength and determination. It was a journey, not just a destination. And like any journey, it was filled with its own twists and turns, highs and lows, moments of despair and triumphs. First, I had to accept the challenge. It was not enough to just acknowledge it, but to embrace it. I had to face it head on, look it in the eye and say, "I'm not afraid of you." Acceptance was not the end. It was just the beginning. It was the first step of many in my journey to overcoming. Next came the planning phase. I had to strategize to find a way to tackle this challenge. So I began to break it down into manageable parts, much like how you'd eat an elephant, one bite at a time. I made a plan, set realistic goals, and mapped out a timeline. This gave me a sense of direction, a roadmap to guide me through the journey. The third step was action. The best laid plans are useless without action, so I started to put my plan into motion. There were setbacks, sure. There were times when I felt like giving up, but I reminded myself of why I started in the first place. I held on to my determination, my will to overcome, and kept pushing forward. But let me tell you, no journey is complete without its share of obstacles. And my journey was no different. There were roadblocks, there were detours, there were moments when I felt lost. But I learned to take these obstacles in stride. I learned to see them not as hindrances, but as opportunities for growth. And then came the most crucial part of the journey: perseverance. I had to keep going no matter how hard it got. I had to persist, even when the odds were against me. I had to believe in myself even when no one else did. Every step I took, every hurdle I crossed brought me closer to my goal. And finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I overcame. I had journeyed through the storm and emerged on the other side, stronger and wiser. I had climbed the mountain and reached the summit. I had faced the challenge and conquered it. Overcoming this challenge was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also one of the most rewarding. It taught me that I am stronger than I think, that I am capable of more than I believe. It showed me that with determination, persistence, and a little bit of courage, there is no challenge too great, no mountain too high, no journey too long. And so, here I am, standing at the end of one journey, ready to embark on the next. Because that's what life is, isn't it? A series of journeys, a series of challenges, a series of overcomings. and I'm ready for it all. Bring it on. From this experience, I learned some invaluable lessons that not only transformed my life, but also altered my perspective on the world and my place within it. The first and perhaps the most significant lesson I learned was the power of resilience. It's not about never facing difficulties, it's about rising each time we fall. It's about understanding that obstacles are not roadblocks, but stepping stones on our path to growth and self-discovery. The second lesson was about the importance of self-belief. Throughout my journey, I realized that the first step towards overcoming any challenge is to believe that it can be overcome. Self-belief, I learned, is the foundation on which we build our dreams. It's the fuel that drives us forward, even when the odds seem stacked against us. The third lesson was about the value of gratitude. In the midst of adversity, I learned to appreciate the good in my life, however small it might seem. This gratitude helped shift my focus from what I was lacking to what I had, from what was going wrong to what was going right. It was a powerful reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always something to be thankful for. Next, I learned about the transformative power of perspective. I discovered that how we view our challenges determines how we respond to them. By choosing to see my struggle not as a setback, but as an opportunity for growth, I was able to navigate it with a sense of purpose and positivity. Finally, I learned that it's okay to ask for help. There's a strength in vulnerability, in acknowledging that we don't have all the answers. We are not alone in our struggles. There are others who have walked similar paths and who are willing to lend a helping hand. These lessons have shaped who I am today, and I wouldn't be the person I am without them. So that's my story. It's a story of struggle, resilience, and ultimately triumph. A tale that began with a mountain seemingly insurmountable looming over me. But as we've journeyed together, you've seen how this mountain was conquered one step at a time. The challenge, daunting as it was not the end, but merely a beginning. It was a trial by fire, a crucible that shaped me and molded me into a stronger, more resilient person. And the struggle, it was real, it was intense, but it was necessary. It was the gauntlet that had to be run, the storm that had to be weathered. Then came the turning point, the moment when the wind shifted, when the tide began to turn. It was a glimmer of hope, a beacon in the darkness, a sign that the struggle was not in vain. And with that hope, with that beacon, I began to overcome. The lessons learned along the way are priceless. They remind us that failure is not fatal, that adversity can be a great teacher, and that resilience is a muscle that grows stronger with each challenge it faces. Remember, no matter what challenges you face, you have the strength to overcome them. Thank you for joining me on this journey.